Good morning, scientists. This morning we're going to continue with our study of ecosystem restoration and learning about the role of food in an ecosystem. So let's go ahead and get right into it. So the first thing we're going to do today is we're going to be making some arguments about our investigation question. So now that we've gathered a bunch of evidence, we're finally ready to answer that question we've been investigating, which is how do animals grow? So let's go ahead and get some ideas down about that right now before we go to our next key concept. All right, and our next key concept is animals grow by changing food molecules into body molecules that can build their bodies. So go ahead and write this key concept down in the box off to the right here, and also in your paper notes. So we can think of this key concept as a claim that answers our question, how do animals grow? Remember that scientists investigate a question and then make a claim supported with evidence to answer that question. And when we make that claim and then support it with evidence, we call that a scientific argument. So every single time a scientist makes a claim, they're going to use evidence to support their ideas. So we have our claim here. Animals grow by changing food molecules into body molecules that can build their bodies. And what evidence do we have that supports this claim? Think back to the last few lessons we've done over the last couple of weeks. So we have a whole lot of evidence that we gathered over the last few weeks. So we read Matter Makes It All Up, and there we read that animals are made of matter, which is made of molecules. We also observed in the sim that when an animal takes in food, some of those food molecules turn into the animal's body molecules. And we made animal models and made them grow by trading food molecules for body molecules. So we've made an argument that the answer to our question is animals grow by changing food molecules into body molecules that can build their bodies. And we have supported this claim with many, many different types of evidence. So what we're going to do now is model the flow of matter to help us build out that argument a little more, to help us kind of cement our thinking about how matter flows from one organism to another. So we're going to get a chance to use a digital model to show your thinking about where food matter comes from in an ecosystem. You'll also think about how the amount of food matter available to different organisms in the ecosystem might affect their health. So just like in the last lesson, you'll be making a model, but we're going to be using a different app today. So this is what it'll look like. There are 3 organisms in this ecosystem. We have zebras, we have cheetahs, and we have grass. So each one of these is going to have a drop-down menu. So up at the top here is this drop-down menu for the cheetahs to show how healthy it is. So the goal here is to show matter in the ecosystem when the cheetahs are healthy. So first, what you want to do is choose normal, healthy in the menu under cheetahs. Then you're going to use the other menus for the zebras and for the grass to choose how healthy the zebras and the grass are. You can also show the amount of food matter in the ecosystem by choosing cards from the toolbar and dragging them into these empty boxes here. So is there going to be no food for the zebras? It's going to be a little less food for the zebras, normal food for the zebras, or a whole lot more food for the zebras, depending on how healthy your grass, your zebras, and your cheetahs are. So once you have completed your model, you're going to answer these 2 questions. So after you complete your digital models, show what happens when the cheetahs are healthy, you're going to respond to the questions: what happens to the grass molecules once they are eaten by the zebras, and what happens to the zebra molecules once they are eaten by the cheetahs. So to get to that modeling tool, you're going to go to your 5th grade science Amplified bookmark. I'm going to click the login with Amplify button. We'll continue to use our remote learning username and password. So remote-learning@tryamplify.net is your username. Your password is remote-learning-2020. Scroll all the way down and click the ecosystem restoration unit. And then the blue number 2, this box right here, is going to be the one that lets you access the food matter modeling tool. So what you want to do right now is go ahead and complete that model to show your ideas about food matter in an ecosystem. All right, and once you've completed that, we're going to move on to the next part where we're going to answer a couple questions. So which food matter cards did you place in the boxes? So what did you put in between the grass and the zebras? And what did you put in between the zebras and the cheetahs? And then why did you place those food matter cards the way that you did? After that, we're going to finally answer these 2 questions. So what happens to the grass molecules once they're eaten by the zebra? And what happens to the zebra molecules once they're eaten by the cheetah? Okay, so inside the body of the zebra, there are these chemical reactions taking place where the food molecules from the grass are turning into zebra body molecules. And then similar way, once the cheetah eats a zebra, those body molecules from the zebra, which are now food molecules for the cheetah, are turning into body molecules for the cheetah. All right, so now we're going to do our argument for writing about rainforest animals. So remember, our job as ecologists working for natural resources rescue is to think about what we've learned, or let's think about what we've learned, how what we've learned applies to the jaguars and sloths in that rainforest project area that we're looking at. So we're going to use our new understanding to answer this question for the natural resources rescue group. So what we want to do right now is go ahead and open the Google Doc that's attached to today's assignment. And let's just go over the directions together, and we can use what we know about how organisms grow and thrive to answer this question. And let me find the thing. Okay, here we go. So in this document, you're going to first read the question below. You're going to write a paragraph that answers the question. And since we're writing a paragraph, it should be at least 5 complete sentences long. It can be longer if you need more, if you want to include more information. You want to make sure you explain how both jaguars and the sloths grow and thrive. And you want to include what you know about molecules and energy in your explanation. So there's a lot to include there. Should not be a problem to come up with 5 or more sentences to do that. So our question is, how do animals in the rainforest ecosystem grow and thrive? So what you want to do right now is, in that Google Doc, write that paragraph to explain how the animals in the rainforest ecosystem grow and thrive using at least 5 complete sentences. Once you've completed your argument, I'm going to come back here, and we've read about and observed many different examples of ecosystems so far. We've observed photographs of ecosystems. We've made observations of animals in the ecosystem restoration simulation, and we've read about the matter in ecosystems in Matter Makes It All Up. So based on what we've learned in the last few lessons, what new ideas do you have about what an ecosystem is? So I mentioned earlier that an ecosystem is animals and plants together with their environment, but scientists use a more precise definition for what an ecosystem is. So an ecosystem is a community of organisms together with its environment. So to go ahead and write that definition down in the box to the left and also in your paper notes so you have it handy for any other future lessons. Let's think about that word ecosystem a little bit. So notice that the word ecosystem has the word system in it. So just thinking about that, what do you think the word system means? And what do you think of when you hear the word system? So some of the systems you might have thought of, ones that we've talked about in class include, like we talked about the solar system. Um, we've mentioned a couple times different body systems like the digestive system. Um, and then there's other systems that people have designed, systems like computer systems, like the one you're working on right now, or the school system. So when we say system, a system is just a group of parts that all work together and each part plays a role. So in your computer system, you have your hard drive, you have the network card that lets you connect to the internet, you have the memory that stores the information, you have the display that lets you actually see the information, you have your keyboard and your mouse or your trackpad that lets you interact. So all those different parts work together so that your computer does what it needs to do to let you complete this lesson. So thinking about the Costa Rican rainforest system, what are some parts of that system that we talked about? So hopefully you talked about the jaguars, the sloths, the cecropia trees maybe, also the water and air, because parts of an ecosystem not only include those living things, so all the living organisms, including the animals, the plants, the fungi, it also includes all the non-living things in the environment, like the water, the air, the rocks. So throughout this unit, we're going to discover the roles of all those different parts of ecosystems, as well as what can happen if something happens to one of those parts. So our final activity for today, we're going to be going back into the Matter Makes It All Up book. So we already know that animals eat to get food molecules they need. Now we need to figure out where those food molecules come from. So we have our new investigation question here. Where do food molecules in an ecosystem come from? So we're going to read the rest of Matter Makes It All Up. As you read about what eats what in different ecosystems, think about where all the food molecules from that ecosystem come from. So to get to the book, we're going to use the same login that we did for the modeling activity earlier. I'm going to go down to ecosystem restoration again. And this time, I'm going to scroll down and click on the purple number 2 to access the food matter modeling, or sorry, not the food matter modeling tool. You're going to be accessing Matter Makes It All Up this time. So, and if you prefer, if you scroll all the way down with this login, you also have access to the book in Spanish. Remember, I've also recorded a read aloud for at least the English version of this book. If you go to your classwork tab on Google Classroom, in between week 10 and week 9 is our ecosystem restoration unit materials, and this is the read aloud. So what you want to do right now is, once you have the book open, you're going to turn to page 12. Remember, since we're using a digital book, it includes like the cover, the table of contents, and a couple other things as pages before the page numbering starts. Make sure you have this picture on the page and that the number 12 is in the bottom left corner of the page that you're looking at. And you're going to read pages 12 to 19. And while you're doing that, you want to think about where the food molecules in an ecosystem come from. So if you take a look, once you're done with that, if you take a look at page 17, you can notice that this food web includes lots of different organisms, including some plants, some animals, some microbes that are too small to see. And what I want you to do right now is just take a close look at this food web and think again about where the food molecules in the ecosystem came from. So, got a couple questions. So, first one, I want you to start with the algae and follow the arrows all the way up until you get to the alligator. So, based on that path you just took, what eats what in this ecosystem? So I want you to write down all the steps you took to get from the microscopic algae all the way up to the alligator. Okay, now I want you to do the same thing again. We're going to start with the algae again, but this time find a different way to get to the alligator. So this time, what path did you take? What eats what in your ecosystem? So there are many different ways to get from that alligator all the way, or from the algae all the way up to the alligator. And a food web shows many, many different ways that organisms can get food molecules. So thinking about that, where does the alligator get its food molecules? So yeah, so the alligator here is going to get its food molecules through many other organisms that eat each other. And there are many different ways that organisms in an ecosystem can get their molecules. Like raccoons, so the raccoon here can eat the frog, it can eat the grass carp, it can eat crayfish, which aren't shown in here. The alligator could eat the heron, right? Because we have this arrow going this way, and it could also eat the raccoon. And then we as humans get our food molecules from all different foods as well, right? You might have a salad for lunch, which would be getting your food directly from a plant. You could have like a hamburger for dinner, which you'd have gotten that food from the cow that turned into that hamburger. And then in the next lesson, we're going to get to make models of ecosystems that are going to help us explore a little bit more where the food molecules in an ecosystem come from. So that's going to be it for today. Once you're done with that, make sure you hit the turn in button on Google Classroom. And then after you're done with today's lesson, please go back and check weeks 6, 7, and 8 of our extended up assignments. Make sure you have all of those completed. And if you are not satisfied with any of the scores you got for some of those, or you're missing parts of it or are incomplete, please make sure you get that completed by this Sunday, which is May 31st, because that is your last chance to turn it in and earn credit for those. So if you don't have it in by then, I won't see it the last time I regrade it on Monday, and you will not get credit for those. So please improve your grade by getting those completed by this Sunday. All right, so I'll see everybody later. Have a good one.